Thank you, Lascan Corla. The events this week in Westminster are a cause of great concern for the Irish people. We are all a little Brexit fatigued at this point after more than 2 years of intense discussions, but we seem further away than ever before from a workable solution to the problem that we face. There are many predictions as to what might happen next: fresh elections in the UK, a second referendum, an extension of Article 50, perhaps all of the above. But what has been made clear, however, by the EU is that the deal currently on the table will not be reopened, and this has been strongly endorsed by the Irish Government. While the UK Parliament clearly rejected the Brexit withdrawal deal on Tuesday last by a staggering 432 votes to 202, with 118 of Theresa May's own party voting against her deal. The UK Government, however, has not officially rejected this deal, and the UK Government did negotiate this deal and has endorsed this deal. So however dead it may seem, it is still technically on the table. The ball is firmly in the UK's court, and the UK Government must make the next move. They must tell us what they want to do next. It is not for Ireland to bend and to weave simply because Westminster cannot make up its mind. We have done our part, and the UK must now honour its own commitments in this process. We must reflect on the outcome of that vote on Tuesday and assess whatever subsequent plan Theresa May brings before her Parliament on Monday. The chaos in Westminster provides a stark contrast to the political stability and united front we have displayed here in Ireland. Fianna Fáil's decision to extend confidence in supply has provided that stability in our country's interests and has given government the space to see Brexit through. Our approach always has been and always will be to be constructive, with the sole objective of ensuring that we get the best possible deal for Ireland and buffer Ireland against the worst possible impact of whatever type of Brexit we may get. It is incredible to think that if Sinn Féin had gotten their way, we would be in the middle of a general election right now. This from a party who have allowed the Northern Ireland Assembly and Executive to remain dormant and inactive for 2 years, at a most crucial time for Northern Ireland. Thankfully, they did not get their way. The UK Government now needs to get its act together, for all of our sakes. People's livelihoods, their jobs, their future and potential opportunities are on the line, both here in the Republic and in the UK, with Northern Ireland being particularly vulnerable. No one will benefit from a hard Brexit, but simply because something is so terrible and no one wants it to happen does not mean it won't happen. We all sincerely hope that a deal is done, and sooner rather than later, because the uncertainty is already having an impact. It's impacting on business, it's impacting on farming, and it's impacting on education, with people adapting their choices and their investments because of Brexit and the great unknown post-Brexit world that we are facing into. In 2017, our central bank estimated that in the event of a no-deal Brexit, Ireland's GDP could be 3% lower, as opposed to a scenario where we have no Brexit. This could mean a loss of up to 40,000 jobs in this country, and the agri-food sector is particularly exposed, with 250,000 jobs supported by that sector, 80% of those jobs outside of Dublin supporting many rural communities. Several reports have highlighted that Brexit would decimate our agri-food industry, and we are still very unclear as to what supports will be available for that sector post-Brexit. While we cannot control what happens in Westminster, we can control how prepared we are here in the Republic. I have consistently raised the issue of Ireland's domestic preparedness and how I feel we are nowhere near as prepared as we should be. Just how prepared are we for a no-deal Brexit? My fear and my concern is that government has put all of its eggs in the basket of getting a deal and has been reluctant to face the prospect that some of those eggs should be in the basket of no deal. I think we have to accept that the potential for a no-deal Brexit is very real, and this was echoed by the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, following Tuesday's vote in the House of Commons, when he said the risk of a no-deal Brexit is higher than ever before. I hope this warning has resonated with Cabinet and has prompted an appropriate urgent response from our government. We will be extremely exposed if the UK crashes out of the EU without a deal. And we need evidence from government that sufficient measures will be in place by the 29th of March. Simple assurances are not enough. The haulage industry still has no clarity on the situation regarding non-Irish drivers needing to cross the land bridge. 70% of haulage drivers driving Irish trucks are Eastern European, and the industry needs to know what their status will be in the event of a no-deal Brexit. This will affect time-sensitive products, such as those in the agri-food sector, our most exposed sector. The estimated volume of transported goods across the land bridge is over 3 million tonnes, approximately 150,000 trucks annually. The reintroduction of any customs or border checks because of Brexit would increase transit times and cost and will negatively impact on our competitiveness. Despite consistent questioning here in the Dáil, in face-to-face briefings and in stakeholder meetings, we still do not know what the solution is to the inevitable delays at Dover Port. If there are delays in Dover, Irish trucks will be caught in those delays. That's a simple fact. We have been told that initial conversations are taking place with France to try and facilitate Irish trucks exiting in Calais, potentially in a separate lane. But these plans have not progressed beyond talking stage. At this point, I would have expected detailed plans backed up with financial support from the EU. Everything is being left to quite late in the day. Similarly, there are serious issues with aviation. While UK planes will be able to fly in and out of the EU, they will not be able to fly between member states. This arrangement only lasts for 12 months. What happens after that? In terms of business supports, the take-up has been quite low, and it is concerning that of the 300 million available in the Brexit loan scheme, only 13.44 million has been drawn down to date. Only 3% of Enterprise Ireland firms have availed of the EI support grant, and AIB in Q3 of last year estimates that only 5% of SMEs have a Brexit plan. On the issue of the EU financial support package that we may need following Brexit, it is my understanding that the Irish Government has not even asked the EU for support, and we have no idea, to put it bluntly, what money will be available, if any, in the event of a no-deal Brexit. I find this remarkable, and an explanation should be provided to this House as to why this has not been done yet. We will need financial support even with a soft, orderly Brexit, and clearly if there is a crash-out, no-deal Brexit, we will need funds immediately for infrastructure and to assist our industries, particularly businesses that export, and our farmers and those in the agri-food sector. We absolutely cannot wait for a crash-out to happen and then start looking for help. We need to know what support package is in place now as a precautionary measure in case we need it. I'm quite concerned that only 200 of the 600 customs staff that are due to be hired will be in place by the end of March. I appreciate, Tánaiste, you have said that hiring can be ramped up, but with respect, we need more detail than that. Only 58 veterinary officials have been hired, and by any measure, this seems like a very low figure. Can you confirm, Tánaiste, that these numbers will be sufficient? The Government, in my view, has been sluggish in their approach to planning for Brexit, and that needs to change now. We need to see an immediate intensifying of contingency planning. We are unsure what the Government's plan is in relation to medicines, particularly those that have a narrow therapeutic index, those that are not interchangeable with a generic or a biosimilar. Has the Government started to put in place sufficient measures to ensure a continuity of supply in all Brexit scenarios? Tánaiste, it's a reasonable question and it's been asked by patients. I have asked for the date when the new traffic management plan will be put in place for Dublin Port. Currently, I'm still waiting on that date. Parliamentary questions to your office and to the Minister for Transport remain unanswered. When it comes to details of infrastructure at our ports and our airports, the information is vague and often conflicting. Again, I cannot even get a reply to a simple parliamentary question as to planning, whether it's needed, whether it's not, and what exactly will be in place at the end of March. Tánaiste, in the short time I have left, I want to raise a very important issue with you, and that is the way and the manner in which I think that you and your government have treated this House in respect of Brexit. I want to take issue with you in the way in which all of us here in the opposition have been treated. The government has consistently asked opposition parties to pull on the green jersey. You ask for this support often when you're coming under in pressure with legitimate questions, albeit difficult. And it's worth reminding government that the role of the opposition is to ask questions, and that wearing the green jersey goes in both directions. You can say what you like about Theresa May and the chaos in Westminster, but she takes questions and she takes them regularly. And all of the MPs in that Parliament have been given an opportunity at all times to put their views across. By contrast, this Dáil seems to play second fiddle to the media at all times. And I say this because getting information at times has been like pulling teeth. And we are being drip-fed information all of the time, very often getting key information from the press. On the 19th of December, the government published their contingency action plan, 10 minutes before the House rose for the Christmas recess. I know for a fact that the media were provided with that plan before the opposition. I think that's wrong, and I think that that's accepted actually across the House, that this House should be informed before the media. It is now January 17th, and this is the first time that we're getting an opportunity to discuss the contingency action plan that was published on December 19th. I wrote to the Business Committee before Christmas to ask for this debate, but I specifically asked for a question and answers session. We're getting statements with 5 minutes at the end for questions. In my view, that is wholly inadequate and insufficient, and there should be more of an opportunity for deputies in this House to ask legitimate questions of the government. On Tuesday, Cabinet met to discuss contingency plans across 4 key areas: transport, medicines, welfare and professions. No details of what was discussed at Cabinet in terms of those contingency reports have been published. Despite being promised a briefing note, I'm still waiting. Why have we waited until today to have that conversation? Why did we not have this debate on Tuesday or Wednesday? And why did the Taoiseach not come before the House on Tuesday to update all of us as to what was discussed in Cabinet that day? Taoiseach, I think we need to trust our citizens more to actually provide evidence of proper preparation and planning. And we need to be honest with us here in the House as to what has actually been done. It shouldn't be such a battle to get basic information. We have lots of meetings, granted. I don't believe we get much out of those meetings. It's been valuable actually at the stakeholder meetings to interact with the stakeholders. It's been really valuable to hear from Enterprise Ireland, the IDA, the unions, Board BIA, Dublin Port. That's been the value of those meetings in my view. But the information that we get at those meetings, you can read in the Irish Times the previous day. So, Taoiseach, I know that I've raised this with you, but I think it's important to put on the record of the House how we feel about how this House has been treated in terms of debating time, in terms of possibility to ask questions. And I take big issue with the media getting advance notice of key Brexit issues before we get it. I want to, in the small time I've left, just move on to discuss...
Question and answer later.
So I'm still on my feet.
Be a question and answer later,
the question and answer session later is 5 minutes, and I've made my point on that, and I'll leave it at that. I think it's insufficient. That's just my view on it, and I'm entitled to make that view known to the House. My final point that I want to raise, Taoiseach, is that there are concerns over the relationship that we now have with the United Kingdom, our closest neighbour, our nearest partner, our biggest market. And there's no doubt that this whole process, understandably, has put strain on those relations. And I think it's important that we bear that in mind, that once we get past this particular situation, that we get Brexit resolved, and I sincerely hope that we do. And I believe that there is a solution out there that will work for all of us. That we need to bear in mind that we have to mend those relations and that we have to do our best to ensure that interactions with the UK Government and with UK ministers continues on a regular basis post-Brexit. It's understandable also that the Brexit process has put considerable pressure on our relationship with the Unionist community in Northern Ireland. And we all share this island, we all live on this island together, and we have an all-island economy. So we need to ensure that those relationships are maintained, and whatever damage, whatever potential resentment might be there, that we seek to address that now and immediately. I think that it's really important that those relationships are maintained, and that we acknowledge that this process has been stressful, not just for us here in Ireland, but in the UK as well, and has put pressure on those relationships, understandably. I'll finish by saying that I appreciate the call for support across the House. The Government will continue to have our support in Brexit, but we will continue to ask questions. Our support is always for getting the best deal for our people and for this country. Whatever measures are required, whether it be emergency legislation, whether it be assistance in keeping to the same message as a country, of course Fianna Fáil will not be found wanting. We will always support our country and ensure that there is stability here so that we can navigate Brexit and get the best possible outcome. You can be assured of our support in that regard, but also be assured that we will continue to press for answers, for details and to hold government to account.